Trek to Yomi. So Trek to Yomi, and I've got this is a good presentation, I hope. Trek to Yomi is a classic Japanese cinema themed kind of samurai shogun classic I guess classic Japanese film experience.
Kurosawa.
Kurosawa, but there's a little bit more experience, and it's very cinematic. For folks that are just getting into this game for the first time, if you're a younger player and you've probably never seen a lot of these older movies, which I'll talk about here, you're going to look at this and say, "Oh, it's exactly what I think of a Japanese samurai movie is," but it's actually a lot more than that. So, Trek to Yomi, Yomi, by the way, is essentially the afterlife, but it's published by Devolver Digital. It's developed by Flying Wild Hog, and it's a immaculate love letter to classic Japanese cinema. And I keep saying cinema because it's not a love letter to sword battles. It's a love letter to the movie, that genre of films. And so let me talk about a couple of these films, right? Tokyo Story, I think it was 1953 or so. And you're going to start seeing the steam develop in these images that I'm showing you guys. Tokyo Story, probably one of the first biggest, if not the biggest, original Japanese cinematic films, cinematic masterpieces, I should say. Black and white, of course, of that era. Post-war Japan, so there's still aspects of U.S. occupation in there. They're kind of building up their prowess in filmmaking, and now that the company is sort of the country is in growth again, they're starting to put more money back into the arts after the war, right? So after enough stuff has sort of started to advance again in the 50s, that they're starting to pour money back in. Obviously, this is the era of Godzilla as well, and there's some kind of aspects of Godzilla in this that I'm talking about. But the thing about the films of this era in Japan is they're very poetic, right? There's almost like this sense of haiku in the way that they construct the movies, and that every shot, every line that someone says, every image you see, every item, everything has meaning, and it all kind of works together. So in Trek to Yomi, they've taken that same aspect where everything needs to be cohesive and everything needs to work together. Not like, Doctor Strange 2 that we just saw, which is like everything just make your eyes melt, no pun intended and no spoiler intended. But it just needs to look cool. In this, every single shot, like you see this perspective shot in Tokyo Story, which is, by the way, it's a phenomenal film about this elderly couple and their kids essentially want to send them to a health spa, and so I would recommend watching it. They're all English subtitles. You can find them all over the place. I even think YouTube probably has them. But you look at the shot in perspective, and they chose this shot because it's a sort of gorgeous home or gorgeous abode. It's got lighting, it's got shadow in there, and it's got this sort of dichotomy, and it's leading you down this hallway, right? And then one of the next shots is looking at the couple, and you're almost like peeking in on their lives, and what this whole genre, there's a strong theme of you're not watching a movie, you're watching someone's life sort of unfold, and sometimes that does mean like peeking around a corner and seeing something happening, unfolding, and you see a lot of stuff in the foreground in front of people, in front of the action. And I think that's such a cool aspect, especially in Tokyo Story, which is one of the first real films to do it. Obviously, Seven Samurai, there's a big thematic essence of that in this game, in terms of how they sort of display battles. And in this scene in Seven Samurai, right, if you haven't seen Kurosawa's masterpiece, that Rashomon, that kind of stuff, it's this sort of 2D platformer, right? You're looking at this scene with somebody practicing sword fighting, and they're doing certain aspects where it's almost like a dance, but it's sort of playing out in front of you like on a stage, so to speak. And the focus is very intent on having this person be in the center, but not be in the foreground. They're literally in the center of a room where there's stuff in front of them, there's stuff behind them, and you're kind of seeing them sort of, dance with with their sword at that point. Then you have this as well, another really famous scene. Again, look at that stuff that's in the foreground there. You're one of the bystanders watching this scene unfold. And you go into Harakiri, sorry, which is another famous film right around that time. The duel, right? There's sort of the samurai shogun and a lot of those kind of medieval or feudal medieval Japanese films of that era really focused on these duels, which is one person versus another person, and every battle is about honor. It's not just a cool fight, but it's combat. And we spoke a little bit about that when we talked about Everything Everywhere All at Once. There's a lot of there's a lot of combat. It's not fights, it's not a battle, but it's combat as a problem solving aspect, and that's what this film, this scene actually kind of showcases. Again, it's sort of like a dance. You're not over the shoulder of the quote unquote protagonist. You're seeing this as if you were standing in the field watching these two guys battle it out. Another one, I love it. The guy is he's in this thing. He wants to commit harakiri. Sorry. But he's kind of getting talked out of it. But he's being judged by everybody around there. Again, it's not a close up to his face. You're sort of in the rafters watching the scene unfold. To get back to Trek to Yomi, and you start thinking about what that actually means, right? Trek to Yomi takes place as a. Let me see here. I think this is playable. Can I play it here? Nope. I have to go back here. Oh, I can't play it. Darn. I actually had the gameplay trailer there. Come on, YouTube will not let me.
This is like the.
Oh well.
This is the PAX panel all over again.
This is the PAX panel all over again. No, I'll play the video in a second here. Trek to Yomi takes place. Starts off as the young kid. Again, it's built on the idea of honor, the idea of fulfillment of duty. As this young child, you're training in the arts, in the combat arts with your sensei. All of a sudden, he's called off to something's happening down in the town square, so he's called off, and you start to get a little worried because it was very rushed, right? And this all unfolds in like the first 2 minutes of the game. So you run off to try to find him, and you're kind of moseying through this town. And you can see the shot there. People are just kind of walking around. Again, it's deliberately set up. I'm gonna mute you, Taylor.
I was just heading over there. Yeah.
Yes, son of a gun. It's deliberately set up as if you were you were one of the bystanders watching this just sort of take place, right? Obviously you're controlling the hero, but he's walking across the stage there. You're going through foreground and background in some of the scenes, but it's a really interesting take. Again, a lot of perspective, a lot of we call it chiaroscuro, but a lot of dark and light and contrast and shadow and sunlight, and it's done in black and white, so they really are emphasizing that era. So you go on, and he's looking for his master, his sensei again. He's walking through this portion of town. He's walking past people. You see the stuff in the foreground there, right? There's a guy getting to work in the foreground and milling something. There's people in the background. In a typical platforming game or a 2D side-scrolling game, you wouldn't have stuff necessarily happening in the foreground like this, right? You would be just focusing on the action in the back, but you're meant to see this as you're a part of this experience. And I love this shot. This is after one of the first initial battles where he's kind of taking out some of these bandits. You're in in the house across the street, overlooking this battle take place. Everything in the foreground is got that blur to it. So it's framing this fight that just took place. And it's so cool because I feel like I'm peeking through this window as this battle, and it's purposefully from a specific distance away. So I can't tell what the guy's face is saying. You know, I mean, you hear what they're saying, but you can't see their face. You see their actions and you see the battle. And again, it's one-on-one battles. And it's so cool from that standpoint. I really do feel like I'm somebody living in this little village watching this combat, this mortal combat take place. And here's the battle right there. Like I mentioned, one-on-one, you can actually see somebody, a secondary bandit kind of coming in there. But the way the battles unfold structurally, it's very one-on-one. There's usually weapons. It's not always weapons, but there's usually weapons, and it's set up like a duel, right? So even if there are folks sort of coming at you from different sides, you're mostly going to be taking them on one by one. Now, it doesn't mean that two people won't attack you at once. You may be swinging your sword at one dude, then the person behind you might want to jump in, so you'll have to turn around and fight them, but they generally wait their turn. And they are sword fights, right? So you really have to block, you have to parry, you have to roll out of the way. Because it's in 2D, there's a little bit of an advantage at that point, at least that sort of kind of keeps things a little more focused. But it focuses on that combat. It says, you know, like the guy that you're fighting here in this shot runs at you. A lot of the bandits do this. A lot of times they'll start with like a high swing, which means you have to parry up high. I'm doing hand motions in our video here, but you have to parry up high or block up high, and then he'll usually come in with a medium or lower shot, and you have to block down low. So he'll telegraph these shots based on kind of his posture and the way he's going to be swinging and attacking. And then if you manage to block those, then you've kind of stopped them from swinging, and you can hopefully get a shot in. But if you do it just right, you can give him a little bit of a stun, and that gives you a really good opening to swing away. Now, these battles can be real difficult, even on normal, like normal difficulty. The battles are definitely challenging, and they're meant to be, because you can see my little life gauge there. You start off with sort of 6 life ticks there, and then that little line, that squiggly line below it, is your stamina. And essentially what that means is you have to, if you keep swinging or blocking too much, then you're going to wear down your energy, and you're going to have to, you know, your character starts breathing heavy, and he can't fight back as easily. He can't block as easily. And I think there's something really kind of cool about that, because it leaves you open for attack. And so you have to manage not only swinging and blocking, but also regaining your stamina, getting out of the way. If you get cornered between 2 or 3 of these dudes coming at you, you really have to, you know, understand who you're going to go after first and how to get away from folks, and try to get a breather off the side. So luckily, after, you know, 2 or 3 of these fights, there's usually a save point that you can get to and heal up and then move on to the next area. So it's generous from that standpoint, that there's only a couple bits of combat, and then you can save, and then the next bits of combat, and then save. But I really admire that each of these battles really does feel like a one-on-one duel. Really does feel like I'm coming at each of these with, you know, I almost know this bandit, because a lot of these bandits will talk, they'll say stuff, they'll argue, they'll be looting a house, and you'll kind of catch them in the act, and they turn around and attack you. And so there is personality to each one. Here's a really cool scene. There was a fight on one of the bridges. There's lots of fights on bridges, lots of fights over water. But again, you're imagine yourself as somebody on a boat looking up, and you're seeing these 2 guys fight, which I think is just so cool. And then, you know, you're standing in the field here. You've found out where your sensei is, and again, cool stuff in the foreground there. There's a lot of the lumber that they've been working on. And it's time to sort of rescue, because, you know, the bandits have your guy. There it is. I'm going to head into the town square, and I'm going to rescue him. And again, another great shot. All these shots are, it's a very linear game. There's not a lot of like extra stuff you can do. It's not like you're running around in 3D and climbing stuff, and it's definitely not like what was that game that came out last year? That PlayStation game, um, that that samurai game, ninja. God, I can't remember anymore. Anyways, it's not a giant 3D open world. It really is a linear experience, and it's really focused. So again, exploring that. Again, a lot of these shots are set up to be that very realistic experience. I think, and what I mean by that is the every shot has just an enormous amount of detail. It's not like they're reusing assets like you'd see in a lot of other games. Not like, oh, there's the same tree over and over again. No, it's every scene has been built up. Every piece of clothing that's kind of hanging on a line there feels like it's the first time you're seeing it. Every house feels fresh and original, even though they're not. They everything feels like it's meticulously been designed as opposed to copy pasted. And again, this scene, it's one line. You're literally just running diagonal. You can't go left or right. You're just running up one way. But there's so much awesome kind of depth in this. Running through graveyards, right? Every gravestone is different. It's unique. They're not vertical gravestones. They understand that you're gonna. This is a village that's been around for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. These gravestones have been decaying, and the ground's been moving. So this stuff is shifting left and right, but everything has this weird sense or this great sense of life and history. And so when you do get to aspects of this world, I mean, again, this is just the opening sequence. This is 5 minutes into the game. This is the first chapter. You've already seen all this stuff, and none of this is like static. Everything is moving. Everything's alive, and it's just so well done. And you get to, of course, fighting the head of the bandits after he's mortally injured your wounded. Yeah, that guy Jack. Look at that six pack. I hopped on the elliptical right away after playing this. But there's the view. You are now the in the hero's body or in first person perspective in a little bit, but this is more of a storytelling feature. Like this is coming at you, right? This is almost like he is definitely the evil dude in this scene, but I think from all your focus on, and it's kind of positioned from you've been knocked down, you're sort of looking up at him. I think it's a great angle that they're using. Time goes by, you've sort of grown up a little bit, and this is obviously the opening sequence right here with the title screen, but now you've taken over kind of managing this town. Again, I don't want to spoil a lot of stuff. This is very in line with what Japanese cinema of the time was. This is very obvious storytelling that if you've been involved in games in the last 25 years, you're gonna understand it. But it's that whole haiku aspect, right? It's these short scenes. They work together to tell a bigger story, and every blade of grass in this is unique enough. Like, look at that. Every blade of grass looks different. You look at like a game like Horizon, Forbidden West, or Zero Dawn, either of them, and we always talk about how incredible, amazing they look, but look at the fucking grass. Like that. That's the tag. Look at the fucking grass. I mean, that's a great tagline for this, and I think it's such a great way to realize you don't need to make a giant expand. What the hell's going on there, Taylor?
I hit my microphone.
Yeah, you're going nuts.
I literally just moved my arm.
But yeah, everything is so meticulously created and so purposeful in this that I think it really has an impact.
Yeah, what I was getting ready, I mean, I was moving my arm because I was going to say something, which was what it kind of reminds.
With your arm?
No, but I like to move my mic when I'm getting ready to speak. It reminds me of when they were talking about some of the development for Spider-Man Into the Multiverse or Into the Spider-Verse, where their idea was that every individual frame of that movie could be kind of viewed
Sure.
like frame by frame and look good every single time. And it's very. This reminds me of that in a lot of ways.
It's in that vein. I think it's not just meant to look good in this case, which it definitely does. It's meant to be meaningful. Like everything is so meaningful. And again, and I'll blaze through this real quick. Again, look at this just gorgeous scene. It's a silhouette, amongst this background, the lights coming through. Here is like fucking rocks. Here I am. You kind of see him. He's walking across that little ledge back there. And then here's kind of one of the last scenes I wanted to talk through. It literally, this is all about the storytelling experience. Yeah, one-on-one battles. Obviously, it's combat, but this is cinema. We looked at Sifu, which is cinematic fights, like cool kung fu style fights from a few months back. This is the actual cinematic story from that era, from the 50s film era of Japan, that is so compelling. And hey, the combat is pretty cool. The duels are pretty cool. The actual plot ends up being, it goes places. Like it's all about integrity. It's all about honor. It's all about like a rebirth of this character. And I think it's such a worthwhile experience. And it's only like 4 or 5 hours long. I mean, this is an awesome game I actually don't recommend playing it on Steam Deck because look how tiny.
Yeah, I was going to say you kind of want it a little bigger.
Yeah, you do want this a little bigger. This is the kind of game that you might actually want to play on a big screen TV. So if you're playing it on Steam, that's fine. Plug it in your TV or stream it to your TV. I think it's worth it that way. Anyways, Trek to Yomi. God, it is. It's worth it just for the kind of experiential aspect of telling this story. And I think the majority of folks who play this are really gonna, or are hopefully gonna see that side and not just think, oh, just another side-scrolling ninja game, because it's definitely not that. Not ninjas, obviously. It's so much more. And kudos to Flying Wild Hog for putting this together, because I think it's so freaking fantastically done. And it's catapulted to some of my favorite games. I'm gonna mute you again, Taylor. God almighty, you're click clacking. It's picking up everything. It's catapulted to my top 3 games of the year already, and I think it's a fantastic. It's an experiential thing that I think you guys gotta check out. So yeah, there you go.